It was in 1884 that the Scottish immigrant Thomas Kincaid registered the first land grant in the Qualicum area. This marked the beginning of a pioneer community whose growth into a town would be shaped and characterized by all those, rich and poor, that would be drawn to this gentle place by the sea.
My grandpa and grandma Jones raised 11 children on that farm on Jones Road, and my mother was one of 11 children. I can always remember my Uncle Harold talking about the black soil, which was very good, but very itchy.
Parkerside came here in 1910, and they came from England. The Salvation Army brought them across. They came to Coombs to start with, and then they bought a piece of property on what is now Parker Road. I don't know exactly how they managed to pay for that, but they did.
My grandparents, Ben Crump and Mary Ellen Crump, homesteaded at the present site of Yanbury Road. That's where my grandfather helped build St. Anne's Church. He and Tom Kincaid brought the logs out of the woods with the yoke of oxen that my grandfather owned.
In 1911, my grandfather was actually looking for some estate to work on as a gardener. The Qualicum Beach Inn was just being built. My grandfather had a meal there, but there wasn't any bread or buns to eat with the meal. And so my grandfather realized that there was an opportunity here in Qualicum for a baker.
My grandfather delivered mail from Parksville on horseback as far as Comox, going along deer trails and along the seashore. Shortly before 1910, built a hotel in Little Qualicum, and it was called the Crump Hotel. After the ANN came through, the wiring was available for a telephone to be set up in the Crump Hotel, and that was the first telephone in Little Qualicum.
When they wanted to build a barn, 4 or 5 families got together and could build one in a season for each of the families by cooperating.
The early settlers and pioneers, they would work at the Bluebird sawmill in the wintertime. Then they would work on their hobby farms in the summertime. And so the mill kept most people going.
And he was able to handle the steam engines in the sawmill. I have a picture of a locomotive that was at the Wilson Lumber Company was delivered with no service brakes on it, and he installed the whole system.
My father, Frank Thurlborn, was a steam donkey engineer, and that was one of the elite jobs in logging industry.
Alec Fraser, he built the big Qualicum Beach Hotel back in the early days.
During the First World War, the Qualicum Beach Hotel was turned into a convalescent hospital, and a lot of those veterans that came to the hospital stayed in Qualicum after they recovered. When I was a kid, there were a lot of veterans in Qualicum that had artificial legs.
And then they moved back here in 1920 after the war was over. By this time, the population was starting to increase, and he got a job with General Money down at Qualicum Beach, looking after the big hotel, gardens.
We were all proud of it because it was the gathering place for rich people. Well, it was basically out of our reach because we were poor people, working people.
I met so many people from all over the world. I found it very interesting. We had a lot of people from the States because General Money knew a lot all over. And they used to come and stay at the hotel, you see.
That was when a transition started. More upper class, more wealthy people, and they started building along Judges Row and places like that. It was in the early 1920s that several other hotels were built in Qualicum. There was the Morgan Hotel, the Benbow Inn, and the Sunset Inn.
Very early on, Qualicum Beach became a tourist destination. There were little cabins down by the beach, like Grandview Park, where visitors came in the summer, They also had a store and a dance hall with a jukebox.
Senator General McCrae acquired 260 acres with oceanfront bluff and proceeded to build a luxurious summer estate.
General McCrae came in, multimillionaire, and they owned the whole block in Vancouver. Shaughnessy Heights or whatever it was. Yeah, he owned Highcroft. Of course, they had servants and chauffeur and all the rest of it.
Eaglecrest was built in the 1930s. General McCrae also owned Arrowsmith Farms as well. That was where just about everybody around here worked at. The buildings were log, and so it not only helped people in the construction part of it, but it also helped people working in the woods as well. It was what saved Qualicum during the Great Depression.
The village center was established with the building of the first store in 1910. The growing population fueled its growth and development as more businesses opened in the following decades.
My father was in the hardware business in Alberta, and after moving to Qualicum, he agreed to buy the Ponsford store and set up here, and it became Bartlett's Hardware Store.
Mr. White had an ice plant. He made ice cream there and delivered ice and ran the station. His family grew up there.
The village of Qualicum nearby offers the tourist all the amenities of city life, with its busy shopping center where one can purchase many articles such as antiques, curios, British woolen goods, and English china.
Then there was Dr. Davidson, had his office on the property that is now the Old Dutch Inn, and he wore pince-nez glasses. He was a funny doctor. I had whooping cough all one summer. He told my mother to take me to the beach every day when the tide was going out, and that would take the whooping cough away. And I had it for 12 weeks. So much for that.
I thought, oh dear, I'll have to go down and have it stitched, I guess. So I went down to Dr. Davidson, and the first thing he said, oh, would you like a cigarette? I said, oh, I never smoke.
Yeah, I knew Gillespie Road. And then he invited us up to his Crystal Springs nature house. And he had these pet deer all around and showed us. Yeah, quite interesting that it was. And I always remember when we were at General McCrae's, told Gillespie, he says, you know, to fit this setting, he says, you should let your hair grow long, to be a hermit. And that's how the hair grew long. Yeah, that's right.
Seen as eccentric, and young people were afraid of him.
My mother only went to grade 1 in the first school in Qualicum Beach, and that's all the schooling she ever had.
Well, in elementary school, we had a new teacher nearly each year, because it was like being sent to outer space for the young women from Victoria. More than one eventually settled in Qualicum Beach.
Mr. Smith, he was as strict as you wouldn't believe, but he was a wonderful teacher. There was no first name basis in those days, which I don't think hurt kids at all. Clothes didn't matter in those days because we were all on the same level in those Depression days.
So we had a minor league baseball, and we played baseball until I was probably 17.
Games on Sunday, on the weekend, at different places: Little Qualicum, Hilliers, Coombs, Errington, Parksville, and Qualicum Beach.
George Knight's private boys' school. They were great on soccer games, and there was a great rivalry, you know.
We used to get a lot more snow in the winter, and it was a lot colder. I can remember ice skating on Walker's Pond, and we also used to go out to Hamilton Swamp when I was a kid. that we would go swimming down at the beach in June because the water would be quite warm, and the summers would get quite hot, and there would be forest fires.
My mom often talked about the good dances they used to have. The Jones girls, there were 5 of them, and all these fellows wanted to come and dance with them because they were good dancers. Some of these fellows walked all the way up here from Nanu's on a Saturday so that they could dance.
Oh, we used to put on a lot of musicals here. We always had good crowds. We used to have wonderful dances, and people seemed to be happier dancing. I don't know how they dance today. They don't seem to have any set steps or anything.
The Legion had family dances in the community hall. All the kids danced with parents and each other, and it was a thing you look forward to. Mother and Dad were great community people because it was a small community and everybody knew everybody. You didn't dare make one false step or everybody knew.
Everybody looked after everybody else. I remember them going out with Christmas hampers, but it wasn't the coordinated thing that they have now with the SOS. It was just what they did.
You know, people didn't have the same things as they have today. It was a different world. I don't know where the time goes, do you? Just gone.